Right to be Read podcast, episode number 27. Interview with fiction author Diana Cachey.
You are listening to the Right to be Read podcast, and this is your host, Ani Alexander.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Right to be Read podcast, the podcast that inspires and encourages writers. Today, I have a special guest. I'm going to speak to Diana Cachey. She is the author of What Happened in Venice, The Trinity. Diana is also a licensed attorney and former adjunct professor of law. She also holds a Bachelor of Arts in English Literature. Hello, Diana, and welcome to the Right to be Read show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's start from the very beginning and please tell listeners who was Diana before she became a writer.
Okay, well, first I need to make it clear that I always wanted to be a writer. That was, I'm getting actually teary-eyed thinking about it. I've been writing my entire life. I started as a very young girl writing poetry and stories. I went away to college and got a degree in English literature. And that's just what I always told people. I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be a writer. Well, then the reality of, as you know, putting food on the table got in the way of that journey early on. And I got a job working for a magazine, but I worked in the advertising department because it's the only way I could get into the magazine. This was Boston Magazine years ago. Mm-hmm. And I just realized that it was a tough road to be a freelance author, to be a magazine journalist. And I did what a lot of artists do, both visual and written creative. Any creative person is. I became what they call a shadow artist. I went and got another career, and the path I chose was law, which apparently is very common for writers to do that. And I became a lawyer to make a living. And what's ironic about the whole thing is I became a published author in law school. I published several articles about the law. One of them was what they call a case comment. It's where you take a case that goes to the Supreme Court of your state or to the United States Supreme Court, and you do a critique of the law that was made in that case. And mine was a very important case that took place in Colorado about mineral rights and insurance, getting insurance to pay for cleanups, environmental cleanups. Uh-huh. And I got published, and it was published again in a mineral journal. So that was sort of a strange thing that happened. I couldn't get away from my love of writing.
I see. So you were working as an attorney, and what happened next? You wrote parallel to that? You wrote in the evenings or early mornings? Or how did you deal with your writing passion?
Yes, I continued to write, and I had different ideas for stories. I was always attracted to mystery, and that's the genre I read a lot of. And I also am very fascinated with the supernatural. One of my favorite authors is Stephen King, who sold many, many, many books. I've got a lot of his first editions, and actually I wrote a tribute to him last Halloween. I do a Halloween month on my website because there's ghosts in my book. But I really put it aside because I was doing well as a lawyer. But, and honestly, when I went to law school, I told my husband, I want to be a writer. And he said, go to law school, become a lawyer. And if you still want to be a writer, then you can do it. So that was always there. And, over 10 years ago, I wrote in a journal that I want to be a writer. It's lacking in my life, but I was doing well as an attorney. I was a very good attorney. I worked as a prosecutor, and I'm a litigator. Very stressful type of lawyer. You can be a contract attorney where you just do documents for business deals, and you don't go into court. I was in court every day with stacks of files. It was very stressful, but I was good at it, and I loved that part of it. But I was the best thing I was at. The thing I was the best at was the writing of briefs, the researching of case law, the creative putting together of facts. So it was always just kind of hanging out there. finally I did a mastermind, a book that where you look at your goals, you narrow them all down, you look at different areas of your life, and I had lots of goals, and all this time I had been traveling because now I was making a good living, and I started traveling to France and Italy, and I fell in love with Venice immediately. The first time I walked into Venice, and so I did this mastermind, and I narrowed it down, and sure enough, number one came up. I want to write a novel. And I decided right then that that's it. It's time to do it. And I started the journey, and everyone said, write about Venice. We want to hear about your Venice trips. So it was pretty easy to decide what I was going to write about. The only thing was that I knew nothing about the craft of the novel. Honestly, I said, what? There's a craft? Here I was an English major. I studied writing in both college and in law school. I taught writing to lawyers. And I didn't know how to write a novel. There's a very specific craft. There's genre-specific rules. There's, you can break the rules, of course, but you need to learn them first. So I started on that path. I started going to retreats. I started finding writers to train with while I was writing it, while I was writing the book. And I knew immediately I wanted the ghost of Venice to be part of this book because I'd always been fascinated, like I said, with the supernatural. And, and then at some point, the great creator just comes in and takes over what you're writing. All of a sudden, you write a chapter and you're like, whoa, where did that character come from? I never met that person before.
And sorry, was it parallel to your work, or once you decided you're going to write a novel, you left the corporate career?
Okay, that's a very good question. Thanks for that. I was, like I said, always writing on the side, always. So I had lots of stuff. I had poems that I wanted to incorporate. I had certain characters already developed, and I also kept not a daily journal when I traveled, but I had lots of descriptions of Venice and France and different places that I'd been. So I had a lot of the basic stuff put together that I did on the side while I was still an attorney. What happened was that my husband got a job working as an international attorney for a corporation, and he was traveling a lot. And I was doing my job, and he was traveling, and I was never seeing him. And I just said, this is crazy. I want to travel with him. So I went very part-time as a lawyer. And when I finally decided I was going to do the book, I basically left law. I'm still a licensed attorney. I still occasionally go to court for people, but I don't practice even really part-time. I pretty much concentrated on the book at that point.
And do you miss it or not? The being attorney and
it comes and goes. I don't know. I don't know. I have to tell you that writing this novel has been much more difficult than anything I ever did in court. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of frustration with no pay, obviously, and spending a lot of money to train at it. And, my law degree and my legal training has become part of what I needed to use in this book because the lead character is an attorney. She started off as a law student, and I didn't think that was exciting enough for her. So I changed her to a lawyer. But so sometimes I think, wow, wouldn't it be great to just go to a job and get a paycheck and have people actually see the work you're doing. I mean, I think people just think I just hang out all day, and I probably work harder. There were some days my husband would leave for work at 6 a.m. and I would be sitting at my computer, and he would come back and I would still be sitting at the computer. That's including his commute.
That's what people think, that we just drink coffee all day and have fun and do nothing, and then the books appear out of nowhere. Yeah. So you mentioned different trainings. Can you tell a bit about why did you decide to be trained by best-selling writers? How did you choose who should train you? And, how did you approach them? What was the process?
Okay. First of all, I would recommend to everyone to do this. I went to writing retreats. I researched places where I could go and have time with other writers to just focus on my writing. And one of the people that comes to Colorado quite regularly, Susan Peaver, is actually, most of the writers I trained with were nonfiction writers. They're usually the ones that do these retreats. There's not a lot of fiction writing retreats to find out there. So I didn't know this at the time. I knew nothing. So I just said, okay, I'm going to go to this. First one I went to was a meditation and writing retreat up in Colorado here. And that had been on my radar for as long as I can remember. This is the thing that I found, is that it's a combination of analyzing and thinking and researching about what your journey will be and just being led, that it's just part of your calling and you will be led to these people. And that's a perfect example, because I always knew I wanted to go do that training up there. It just so happened she's written 7 books. One of them was a New York Times bestseller. At least one of them was. Mm-hmm. And what we did there was we meditated and then we wrote. And what we did was we incorporated meditation into the process to alleviate fears and block the left brain from... you block the left brain from blocking you, basically, because your left brain, your logical brain, which, being an attorney, I was clearly trained in that area, will analyze every sentence before you put it on the paper. Mm-hmm. So this meditation helped to just be able to get the juices flowing, number one, and to do it without fear, to not judge it as it was coming out. And then we also read pieces at the end of the day. And from that point on, I made that a part of my writing path. I got a writing partner. We met every week on the phone and we read to each other. One thing that does is it forces you to have something prepared to read to that person. So even if it's the night before or the morning before the call, you'll come up with your 1,500 words or your 1,000 words. So that they will critique there as a reader. They will say, I wonder what she was thinking in this scene. It might be from the other person. It might be from like the male character's perspective, but and when you're trained as a writer, you're taught, don't switch perspectives. Stick with your character who's thinking in that chapter or in that scene. But a reader will feel cheated by that sometimes, and they will say, like, I want to know what she's thinking. That's a pretty big thing he just said. Mm-hmm. So, things like that. But also the actual reading out loud yourself, you just immediately hear something, that didn't sound right, or wow, that was a really lovely passage. It's just amazing what reading out loud can do for the writing process. So those two things of learning to read out loud at that retreat and using meditation to calm the left side of the brain, the analytical side of the brain, so the creative side could emerge, were very important things I learned at that one retreat. So, and then I studied with several others. I just continued to do that because I've accomplished so much at retreats every time that I'm still, even though I'm publishing these 3 books in the next few months, I'll publish the next 2. I'm still going to go to retreats. I'm planning to go to one in March. They're asking me to speak at it to talk about my journey like I'm doing with you, which is another wonderful thing. But I will always go to retreats, and retreats I've been to, there have been published writers there as well. So it's not just for people who are starting off. It's a very good thing to add into your path as a writer, I think, for me. Some people don't like them. I enjoy them.
I see. So these retreats most probably also gave you the new perspective at looking at writing, since you've been writing by yourself and, you had your own approaches. Now you could see different things, how others are doing it, and, switching off the left part is something not everyone manages to do. So it's one of the best techniques, I think, that will help you further on in writing any books from now on, I guess.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And another thing you asked, you were wondering about the market. What else? I did more than just writing in my trainings. I did find people who Robert Allen is one of them. Robert G. Allen. His book on real estate is the largest selling book to date in how to purchase and sell real estate, how to make money selling real estate. He wrote a book a long time ago called Nothing Down.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote about how he was able to purchase real estate with no money down and create quite a fortune doing it. And I always loved real estate. That's another passion of mine. I have made real estate investments that have made me actually more money than sometimes than law.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew about him, and I admired him. And he's the one that steered me on the path of independent publishing. And then I researched it, and I started to learn about different. And he had an agent who I had access to, and but he really said, the wave of the future is independent publishing, with the royalties that you get as an independent publisher, with the control that you have. You can get your book out in a more timely manner. It's a lot more work. Believe me, it's not for everyone. You have to do it all yourself, really, or find people to do it for you. But then you're the ultimate. You're the publisher, really, because you have to make sure all the proofs come out correct. And since I started it, I found a lot of books have mistakes in them. Even in the third edition, we're talking bestsellers have mistakes. I'm a pretty precise editor, so I'm always finding them. So it's a lot of work to do it, but he really encouraged me in that area, and I learned a lot about marketing promotion from him, which is very important no matter if you're going to go traditional publishing or indie publishing, you're the promoter. Not until you're an established number one, we're not even talking on the list. You pretty much have to be a number one New York Times bestseller for them to put money into advertising your book.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do it on your own. So I'm glad I learned that. That was very important. Many writers, I went to the book expo and spoke with a lot of writers there, and they hate the marketing part. They just want to write the books and hope for the best. I'm lucky I actually enjoy it. Probably, again, the left brain, the lawyer in me, the analytical side enjoys that part, but it does add a lot more hours to your day to have to do that too. So you just try to take it easy if you can.
Okay, so you have that's what I wanted to say, that you have this perfect balance of having the experience in left-sided life, let's say, and the creative one, so you can balance them out and switch on your left brain while marketing and switch it off while writing, which is like the perfect combination, I guess.
You would think so, but sometimes they fight with each other. They're like two cats that live in the same house. Sometimes they get along and they balance, and sometimes it's like schizophrenia. You don't know which, you're marketing, and your book is saying, "Hey, you're neglecting me over here." So,
I see.
Yeah, it's an interesting dance.
So you wrote the 3 books, and you're launching them with pretty much one after the other?
Yes, that's correct. The overriding mystery there's several mysteries I didn't realize till after I wrote them. The big mystery is that who killed the 2 glassmakers that were found drowned. They say were drowned, and they found their bodies. That's the ultimate mystery that we hope will be resolved by the end of book 3. Then there's another mystery that is, who is the ghost that's talking in the books? Who is that character? So that then there are, the love relationships that take place. So it's multi-layered in that regard. And then there's also a question of whether there isn't a greater conspiracy taking place behind these if they are murders and not accidental deaths, if they actually were murdered, the two glass makers, is there a greater conspiracy going on that's threatening the town?
Uh-huh.
And so there's quite a, and so that is wrapped up at the end of book 3. The mysteries, you do find out who is the ghost, at least, the very least. You find that out. I don't want to give too much away. But there are various clues that are planted throughout by either other Venetians in the town or the ghost. That's another mystery, whether it's the ghost or whether it's just people in town trying to orchestrate this because they're afraid themselves to come forward. And so each book contains a series of clues that are pursued, and of course the romance that they're being pursued and pursuing, because it's Venice, after all, the most romantic city in the world.
Okay.
There's lots of romance.
So you have, let's say, a mix of different genres in your novel, as I see. Yeah. I mean, you have mystery.
Yes. It's a romantic mystery, which has now become a genre, actually. And some people would call it paranormal romance because you have the paranormal elements in it. Mm-hmm. And there is a question of some of the men that are in it. Are they real? Are they ghosts, or are they just Venetians? Mm-hmm. So I guess it does qualify as a paranormal romance as well. Obviously, it's contemporary. It's set in contemporary times, so it's contemporary women's fiction. I find that when I read that most books don't set so perfectly into one genre. They overlap in that way. A thriller like John Grisham, who's another lawyer, writes thrillers, but his have become like a genre of their own, legal fiction, legal thrillers. And I'm not even sure they're thrillers. They're not even really that suspenseful, but yet they're called suspense. So I think that genres are blurring more and more, especially as people start to publish independently. Mm-hmm. They're able to not have their books pigeonholed. When you're online, you have a broader reach than when you're in a bookstore and they have to put your book in one section.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So once you had your 3 books written already, what did you do next? How did you plan your launch?
Well, at first I had to decide that it would be a serial novel, and I was instead of just one big gigantic book, and I realized that it's very dense, like Venice. When you go into Venice, you go down different streets, and there's so much to see in one thing. It made more sense to do it this way. It is also becoming a very popular way. Readers love it. Readers love to have cliffhangers and wait for the next. I'm not the first to do it. Stephen King did it with The Green Mile, and it's, so I knew it was a popular way to do it. And so I decided to do that, even though I had most of all 3 books finished. I had the first one finished. The second one, of course, I'm doing the 150,000th edit, it feels like. And it will be to the publisher this week. And then the third one, I may or may not add some chapters to. I haven't decided yet. There's some things I wanted to do, some scenes I wanted to do in the book that I decided really may or may not be necessary, and I could save them for the next mystery, which I already have decided what I'm going to do on that after these 3 are finished. But so I don't know about that. I don't know if that one's finished yet. Mm-hmm. We'll wait till I get there. So I launched this one, and that just was released July 22nd. Because there are cliffhangers and there's unresolved mysteries at the end of this book, I really wanted them to follow pretty closely after one another. Mm-hmm. You could do it anywhere from, some people are doing serial novels that are basically 2 chapters they're releasing. this is a 12 chapter book or a 10. I mean, it's about the length of The Great Gatsby, which is the great American novel, The Great Gatsby. So it's a full novel. It's just that, so I didn't want it to be too close in time because I wasn't just releasing chapters like people sometimes do. But I didn't want it to be too far apart because people are waiting. They want to know the answers that are left at the end of the first book. So that was another decision I had to make. And, this meditation, I highly recommend it because you get answers that come from all over. Yeah, I don't know where they come from. Sometimes from within. Sometimes it's something you heard months ago. And 4 to 6 weeks was the answer I got. Somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks, the next book will be released after this one. So that's how I've been doing it. Another thing is that as soon as you release a book, you have to start planning your promotion. I'm going to be doing a blog tour starting August 11th. That will be on 15 to 20 blogs. There will be blogs that I've written. There will be book interviews. There will be book reviews. And so to do that at the same time of proofing the second novel is time intensive, to say the least. Also, my website blew up right before the launch of this book, so I had to create a new one of my websites had to be recreated. So things just happen, and if you're centered, you say, okay, that's part of the path. I guess the next book is supposed to be 6 weeks. I decided 4 to 6 weeks, so now it's going to be 6 weeks because all these other things happened with book one. So you have to give and take on this because you could really make yourself crazy. And I have. I've had moments where when that happened with my website, it wasn't a pretty few days. I was very, very emotional. And then I just said, I guess this means that my website needs a new face. I finally got to that point after a few days, but, it's like life. I don't know. I don't have children, but some people say it's like having a baby. Having a baby.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And are there any people who help you with the marketing or the website, or you're doing absolutely everything by yourself, or, you get some support somewhere?
Okay, great. Another great question. I had a team. I had a graphic designer that also, I don't know if you know, but I have a YouTube channel that is Secret Venice videos. And she helped me edit. There's an opening and a closing that's the same in every video, where it's like the gondoliers and some beautiful like accordion music, and then I speak all unscripted. 1 to 3 minutes. I took these all in Venice. Some I took in different parts of Italy, but they're mostly Venice. And so I had her to help me with that. And that I worked on as I was writing the book. Because again, my training that I got from these writers was you have to start doing that now. And people that don't write books, people were like, well, shouldn't you be spending your time writing the book and finishing the book faster instead of working on this other stuff? And I said, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to just be able to focus on one thing? But that's not what I was trained to do. And I'm really glad that I listened to them, because now I don't have to start from scratch. I've already built a YouTube channel that's got 500,000 views. One video has over 200,000 views. So I've got people that write me and ask me questions about Italy. How do they find the pizzeria that's in one of the videos or something? So I had help with that. She just had a baby, so she couldn't help me with the website that blew up. But I had taken a course on how to build a WordPress site, so I just revamped it myself and had a virtual assistant help me a little bit with that. So I have a team that helped me with the cover, a design team formatted this book. But, still I had to do all the proofing. I had to do, anytime I made a change, I had to put them in. I had to manually put them in and send them to them, and then they format. So some people do all that on their own. I paid someone to do a lot of this stuff. There's people that do all that on their own because they can't afford to pay for it.
Yeah.
So, it just takes a little longer that way, and you're learning how to do new stuff. I didn't know how to do a video. I begrudgingly bought a video camera. I didn't want to do videos, but all of my marketing training told me you could do video. You should do video. So I was in Venice thinking I was going to finish the book, and I was completely blocked. I got sick because it was cold, and it was during Carnival, and it was the coldest winter they've had in like 20 years. The lagoon actually froze that year. And I got the video camera out, and I said, okay, I guess I'll start taking videos. And I found that I really liked doing it. So you never know what's going to happen when you start the journey.
Yeah, well, opportunities are everywhere. You just have to notice them and jump on. Okay, so what are you hoping for with your books? I mean, now they are coming out one after the other. You're working on the marketing, you're having the blog tour, and what are you expecting from these 3 books?
Well, like I said, I trained mostly with nonfiction writers, and in nonfiction writing, you're able to actually create a book proposal with marketing and chapters and send it to an agent and a publisher and get a book deal before the book is even published.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often with fiction. You have to have the entire book done. But I did create a book proposal, and that outlines a very extensive marketing plan. Launches, for example, something I would love to do in the future is go to at least the Las Vegas Venetian Hotel and do some type of promotion there. At the Venetian. In the Venetian, I'm going to Venice in August. It's very easy to promote a book about Venice in Venice. When you meet English-speaking people, you can pass out your cards and talk to them. And I made a lot of friends doing that over the last few years, just telling them I'm going to write a book. So right now, I'm focusing on that market base that I've already started. People that I know that are already interested in Venice. They're waiting for the book to come out. People retweet my videos. Those people will be, I haven't done it yet because this is all a lot of work, obviously. I'm going to contact those people that have said, let us know when your book is out, or we really love your videos. I'm going to get in touch with them. So a lot of like individual mass marketing, which I think is important. I think, online marketing can be very impersonal. And so I'm doing actual personal emails to people because they have been telling me, we can't wait till your book comes out. We want to read your book. Now, that may be a small amount of people. I mean, maybe I'll sell hundreds of books, which is great. A lot of people sell less than 50 when they publish online, and I've already sold quite a few just in the first week. But those people know people. And you just don't know where a seed that's planted will go. And the main important thing I think that every author should remember is that you're doing this out of love. You're doing this because you love to write, although it can be difficult at times and you hate it. I always say my favorite line is, I love it when I don't hate it, because it can be very difficult and lonely. You're doing it out of love for your topic. I love Venice, and I grew to love the characters, and you just want to share your experience of some wonderful event in your life. If you're a nonfiction writer and you're an expert on something, you're training people on that area. And mine was, I love this city of Venice, Italy, and I love Italy, and I want to share that with people. So you have to always kind of come back to that and hope that it comes through in your marketing, that, the book will be good enough and the buzz will start. What I heard recently was, the first 1 to 10 miles, maybe the first, when you're in a car or a bicycle, are the hardest ones. They're the ones that are getting the momentum going. But once the momentum is going, you keep the momentum up, you see where that goes. So lots of ideas for launch and for marketing, and then, but also trying to keep coming back to the heart center of it. Is your love for your your topic and your characters and what you're doing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what would be your? This is the last question. I won't torture you anymore. So, what will be your?
Okay.
Your advice to the ones who are just starting this journey? What would you advise them?
First of all, get the first 500 words written. I have a lot of people that come to me and say, oh, I want to write a book. I see what you're doing. I have ideas. I have stories. My life was crazy. I want to write about it. And I tell them, write 500 words. They don't know what to do. I said, well, write down the characters, do a character study of whoever, and I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, I never hear from them again. Mm-hmm. Because that, like I said, that beginning, that momentum. So get something down on paper, anything, even if it's just a 2-page outline, or even if it's just, here's 4 characters. And then once you start to do that, there's a wonderful book that I recommend to everyone by Stephen King on writing. It's one of the best books ever written about writing. And what he says is he calls it going in the basement to wait for the muse. I mean, I'm paraphrasing him, but, your desk should never be in the middle of the world, in the middle of the room. Now, a lot of people like to go to coffee shops to write so they can get out of their environment. That's fine, as long as there's nobody there that's going to come in and disturb you. But his theory is go into a room, and the room has to have a door on it, and the door has to be shut. And you sit in there and you write every day 1,000 words. You make your however many words you're going to say, you're going to write every day, 1,000, 2,000. And you don't get out of there until you've got those words. And I found that I get stuck at about, maybe if you're a runner, I get tired at about 2 miles when I'm trying to do a 5-mile run. It's sort of like that. It's like at about 800 words. First of all, the first sentence is ridiculous. You could sit there for 20 minutes and not get the first sentence out. That's always the hardest. But then you get to about 800 and you're like, okay, I'm ready for my coffee. I'm ready to stop. And it's like, no, I'm going to go to 1,500. And the next thing you know, you have 2,500 words. Mm-hmm. So that's the second advice. So first, get the first words down, sit every day. And then I would get a coach, even if it's just another writer that you call every week and that you read to. Because it's very important. Again, it's another type of accountability, because we have no accountability as writers unless we have a book contract.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Diana, for sharing your story and sharing your tips and your journey with my listeners. I really appreciate you spending this time with us. I wish you lots of success with your books, and I want to see them in the bestsellers list.
Sounds good. And one more thing I want to add is that I do really love working with writers. So I love it. And maybe that's really my calling. I don't know yet. So contact me at www.dianacachey.com or www.whathappensinvenice.com. Just leave a comment and say, Diana, I'd like you to help me with my writing, and I'm happy to do it if I have time, and I might be creating my own retreats in the future. So it's great what you're doing here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Well, I think Diana's case was a perfect example that if you are dreaming to become a writer, no matter what kind of corporate career you have, no matter how successful it is, there is still a way to turn things around, to change your life and pursue your dream. Well, to discuss that and many other things, please come over and become part of the closed Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/right-to-be-read, 2 as a number and B as a letter. Also, I've created a new page which illustrates what I can do for you and how can I help you. So please check it out at www.anialexander.com/gethelp. I really hope that you enjoyed the interview, that the podcast is really useful and it provides value to you and your writing. I wish you success in everything you write. Take care, go and write that awesome book of yours, and get back to me for the next episode.